Well, hello, boys and girls. It's when we feel like it o'clock. I'm Pearl of Wisdom, and you're listening to my NHL Pearls of Wisdom live edition, weekend review edition on this fine Monday where we only have one game and nobody knows why. Crazy. Fortunately, on NFL playoff day, we had a mitt full of games, a crazy amount of game. I don't know the scheduler, what they were on or what was going on there. I don't know. I wouldn't want to make schedules, so I'm not going to slam them too much. It seems kind of odd. But that being said, there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened this weekend. How was your weekend, John?
It was good, man. It was a fun weekend and obviously a good amount of hockey going on. Had some fun outside of hockey as well, and it was a good weekend and obviously massive news break on Saturday.
Yes, that's going to make this that's what made this weekend really cool for hockey wise, no doubt about it. Not often you get blockbusters like that, and we're going to get into talking about that right away. Hey, sports geeks, how you doing, my friend? He's one of the finest in the land. He is a legend. Yes, he is. He's always coming on. We love you, dude. Thank you very much for coming on. We're gonna get rolling. We got a lot to talk about from this past weekend, so we should probably get right in it right away. What was the news Saturday? So we'll be talking about it right now because we're going to talk about Saturday's games right now. So, and of course, the first game on the card Saturday came out. News came out. What was it? It was before this game by quite a bit.
It was Saturday morning around 10:30.
Saturday morning around 10:30. The big news of after the Dubois debacle, where he went out and we'll just talk about it right from the beginning. Let's go over all of this because I kind of have a theory on how everything went here. I'm going to take devil's advocate and kind of take Dubois' side, but let's just first talk about the trade, and then we'll talk about everything that led up to the trade and our opinions on it and all that. First of all, the trade itself. Dubois to the Winnipeg Jets for Laine and Roslovic. Whole bunch of stuff. First of all, just what did you think of that trade right off the get-go? Let's just start from there.
Oh, man, it felt like such a steal for the Blue Jackets out of the gate, and I think that's how a lot of people's initial reactions were. I mean, Dubois is a good player, but to get Laine for Dubois and then to get Roslovic on top of it with only a third-round pick going back the other way, I mean, it seemed like a really good deal for the Blue Jackets, and obviously Pierre-Luc Dubois did not want to be there and was not going to be playing in a Blue Jackets uniform anymore, so for them to get that much for him in a situation where they didn't really have a whole lot of leverage, that it seems like a massive win for the Columbus Blue Jackets out of the gate to get not only this disgruntled player out of their locker room, but to get Patrick Laine and another player who hasn't lived up to his expectations yet. The NHL level is still fairly young and still a good player. To get both of them for Dubois and a third.
I'm losing you. Okay, we're back. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so anyways, it did seem like a lot for Winnipeg to get up, but okay, taking on Winnipeg's side, I'm guessing that there was not much out there for Laine. They've been trying to trade Laine for quite some time now.
Yeah, I think Laine's a better player right now than Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, Laine's a better goal scorer. Patrick Laine got a lot of flack, but his all-around game has gotten so much better over the past couple of years. Like, when he came into the league and he was scoring 40 goals and he was just a pure goal scorer with a monster shot on the power play, but his all-around game has gotten so much better over the last couple of years. His assist numbers last year were the best of his career, and his defensive game has gotten a lot better than his first couple of years in the league. So the goal totals have come down a little, but the all-around player has gotten better in Patrick Laine, and I just think Columbus got the better players out of this deal for what Winnipeg was able to come out of it with. The difference is the center versus a winger, which could add to the value of Dubois because he plays down the middle.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that they, in player for player, they probably got the better deal. No, looking at it from Winnipeg's perspective, Winnipeg plays in a market that's hard to find players that apparently are happy there. Because you got Trouba, you got Roslovic wanted out, you wanted Laine that wanted out. We don't know the ins and outs of the reasons why this is. I have my theory. Winnipeg is a tough market. It's very wintry. It's very cold. It's not sexy at all. Let's just put it right out there. But neither is Columbus, really.
No.
So that makes it kind of odd that we went that direction. And I think that when making trades with other players, Winnipeg trying to make trades with other teams, I should say, they were concerned about who they might get back. And here's an opportunity to get Dubois, whose father works in the organization, and seemed to have an idea that they were going to be very, very happy going there. And I think that really was what moved the meter for this trade. They just took two guys that weren't happy and brought in one guy that seemed very, very happy to come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And the other side of this is it looks like a big win for Columbus, but that's if Columbus re-signs Patrick Laine to a somewhat long-term deal. Laine's contract's up at the end of this season, and if he only plays like the rest of this year and then doesn't end up going back to the Blue Jackets, then this really isn't a win for Columbus in that respect. So they need to get Laine signed, and they need to actually keep him. Otherwise, you gave up Dubois, and all you got was Roslovic pretty much in return, and Laine for a part of a season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe he's still a restricted though, isn't he? Or is
he'll be an RFA.
Yeah, so you could be having the same issue that Winnipeg had if you're not wanting to sign him for the number. I imagine they must have at least talked an area of the numbers. I suppose Kekalainen is thinking maybe it'll be easier for us to get a center back for a winger that has 40 goal potential than trading Dubois and needing the center back. You're probably not going to get a Dubois level center back. You're going to have to get something plus. So, in the long run, it might put them in a better position, even if they're not able to sign Laine, to get something back that is more what they need, which is now, as we can talk about this, Columbus Blue Jackets need a center, right?
Yeah, they don't have a number one center there now in Columbus. And, I mean, you're looking at what's their depth down the middle. Max Domi and Boone Jenner is kind of like the two centers now there that are going to play significant minutes. They certainly are not deep down the middle. They got a massive upgrade to their wing position, bringing in Laine, but they're not great down the middle now. Roslovic can play center as well, but he hasn't had a great NHL career up to this point. He never could crack that top six in Winnipeg, and I think that's one of the reasons that he wanted out of Winnipeg, was because he wasn't getting the playing time and he wasn't cracking that top six, but he wasn't playing all that great, and he played more on the wing because they tried him at center and it didn't work, and they ended up having to bring back Paul Stastny because Roslovic wasn't good enough to be the second line center. So for Columbus, I don't think you're going to be able to throw Roslovic just into a top six role. So they are weak down the middle now, and they don't have that top guy. So that's something that they're going to have to try and go out and make a move for, or maybe they just roll with it for this season and try and do something in free agency. But they definitely need a center at some point there in Columbus.
Yeah, Rozovic is an interesting situation because he still has upside. Tortorella has a tendency to work magic on players if they can work with them. And he was supposed to be a center when he came in the league. The Winnipeg started playing him on the wing. There's always been this talk, and at least not really talk, what I've noticed is that they play their players on lower lines for a very long time, and I think it's the crux of what the problem is. They did it to Trouba. They were giving Laine poor players to play with a lot while he was there, and then trying to say, well, your numbers don't say we're going to give you this much money, and Laine is going, well, if I'm playing with Scheifele, I'm a number one winger here. I'm better than the other wingers you have, and you're not playing me on the top line. And then you come back and tell me my numbers aren't good enough. Screw you, I don't want to be here. I honestly don't blame him. If that is this case that it's happening, I don't blame him. It seemed to be what was happening with Trouba. So one thing is for sure, Laine will get top line minutes in Columbus. There's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The question will be, he isn't really known for his defensive prowess. How he's going to work in that system, we'll have to see. But it's a fascinating trade, and I also like to say that I still think Winnipeg did fairly well considering they had not much leverage when working with other teams. I think Columbus did extremely well, especially when we just talked about it the last live we did, that they had, because of what Tortorella was doing and because of the whole situation that was going on there, we really thought they had no leverage at all, right?
Yeah, I didn't think Columbus had any leverage whatsoever. Everyone in the league knew that Dubois wanted out. Everyone in the league knew that the situation was getting to a point where it was completely unrectifiable, and Dubois was either going to be a healthy scratch or he was going to be traded, but he wasn't going to play again. And that really took the leverage away for Columbus. And for them to get this much in return for a guy that everyone knew wasn't going to play for the Blue Jackets again, I think was a tremendous job by Kekalainen in getting a huge return for a guy like Dubois.
Yeah, it just continues with all of these issues like Panarin wanting to leave, which was for a different reason. He was very upfront about it right from the get-go. He wanted to go to a big market for his model girlfriend. Isn't that problems to have, eh?
Yeah, I know. New York's a perfect place for him.
Right. So, and then Bobrovsky, nobody blames him for not signing him to an 8-year, $10 million deal, especially after he goes to Florida and craps the bed. Yeah. So right now, I know I've heard like all of this has been going on Tortorella. I personally just don't see it. I've heard lots of people talk about Tortorella where he can be demanding and all of that, but most people do it glowingly and say that he has very much kind of rolled with the times a little bit and changed himself up a bit as he's went along. So the fact of the matter is, so I wanted to get into what I kind of thought happened here. Dubois was a restricted free agent. We talked about this last time. He was talking to a whole bunch of other teams, and they were buttering up as other teams will do, and they are possibly wanting to give him an offer sheet because he has to sign the offer sheet, right? Yep. So they're going to butter him up, and they're going to tell him, look, we'll give you this, and we'll give you that, and you're going to be the number one center here, and we love you, and we think you're better than everybody, and blah, 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 on and on and on. His father, who is in Manitoba, who is a coach for the Manitoba Moose, I want to say.
I believe so, yes.
Who just so happened, maybe wants to move up in that organization a tad.
Probably.
I would think his lifelong dream wasn't to be a coach of the Manitoba Moose. He sees an opportunity for his son to come play in an organization with him. The whole Laine situation's going down, and I think he's speaking to his son. This is speculation here, but it makes sense if you're looking at it. He's saying, I don't know why the deal's not done here. We need Laine out. You don't want to be there. You want to come here. Laine will go to Columbus. You shouldn't have to wait for your whole contract or any amount of time. They should just get this deal done. It's a fair offer and all that kind of stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. He's hearing this from his organization, maybe even from his agent, and it's wearing on him. And that final shift, that final day, I think he just kind of felt lost. He felt what he looked like on the ice. I'm not sure he did it on purpose to say, I want out of here. It's just the whole thing just kind of overwhelmed him a tad. And he looked lost on the ice, just completely lost. And that was it. And then because of that, then Tortorella, I think, went to, I don't even think he had to go to the general Kekalainen. They just said, okay, we got to do this deal right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I ripped him for that last shift on my show because that was probably the laziest NHL shift I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know what really has been going on. How obviously this has been building up for weeks now, probably even months going back into the off season. But it wasn't a good situation, and this was a move that had to be made because he was not going to dress for the Columbus Blue Jackets again after that game. After he went out and that, we all focus on that one shift, but as Tortorella said after the game, it wasn't just that one shift. This was something that was repeatedly going on, and the effort level wasn't there to start this season, and it was building and building and building, and you knew that there was a huge rift there, and you just knew that the levee was going to break at some point, and I think that shift where he went out there, didn't battle for the puck, made no attempt to do anything, was just that final straw that broke the camel's back. And then at that point, you knew that he was never going to play for the Columbus Blue Jackets again, and that deal was pretty much immediately put on the table, and that you knew that deal was coming right after that, and that he was going to be on a new team very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we'll talk a little bit on Lionel's behalf. Again, he's been rocking this year. So if mental strength and all of that was considered to be an issue or was part of all of this, well, he showed that it was because he wasn't able to go through this adversity and be able to put out his full effort. So that's concerning going to Winnipeg. We'll see what happens there. Maybe some players just have to be happy to play. I've always defended Laine. People have said a lot of things about him, and that he's. I've said if you see him on the ice, I mean, I don't see him not putting out effort on the ice. He rocks with his teammates well, not just this year, but period.
Yeah, and that's something I think that's why I was so upset with Dubois and so kind of ripping him for it, was because we've seen plenty of other players want out, and Laine's the perfect example. There's been trade rumors about Laine for the past 2 years, and Laine is pretty much wanted out of Winnipeg for a while, but he still went out and put up full effort every single night and still played his best and still played to win for the Winnipeg Jets, even though he wasn't necessarily happy playing there. And Dubois just went out and mailed it in. And he just went out there and was like, the heck with this. I'm not playing, and I'm just going to glide around here for a few shifts, and just completely mailed it in. And I think I'd rather have a guy like Laine, who even though he's not happy is still going to put in the effort, than a guy who's just going to check out as soon as he's not happy and not want to play. Yeah. So that's a character thing that I'm much more on the side of a guy like Laine than someone who just gives up like that.
Yeah, and it's funny. We didn't. I never really thought this about Dubois leading up to this year, and I think
it's been just like this incident that has led to all this.
Yeah, and even Tortorella seemed to say that it was like a surprise to him. He was very taken aback by it all. But anyways, it's over now, so we'll see what happens. We'll see if Laine works with the center there and can pot some goals, or maybe they can find another center to work with them. In Winnipeg now, they need a winger just as much. Roslovic was playing the wing. They're playing Perreault up there, and that's not ideal on a regular basis to have Perreault in your top six. So they're going to be looking for a winger. A winger is a little easier to find than center, and they're still looking for defense in Winnipeg. So that'll be we'll watch that as that grows, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about it. But let's get into some of the other games that happened on that Saturday. We'll go to your favorite team. Why not? We'll go that way. And we you know what? We didn't talk about the game. Let's talk about the game a little bit. Okay. The Blue Jackets Lightning game. We didn't even talk about it after all of that.
The Blue Jackets played their best game of the season as soon as Dubois was traded.
Yeah. What does that tell you? What does that tell you, right?
There was something going on in the locker room there, and they were, I think, really happy that this was just over and done with.
Yeah. Ticked me off because I had Tampa ML on that game. But the thing that I watched that game, and what I really noticed about that game was they got back to playing the Columbus game completely, that game. And it also noticed that I still give props to Tortorella for everything he does and the system he puts in place and how he works with the energy that goes on. Because that's a lot to ask after all of that crap that all of those guys went through here to be able to play the way they did. Remember, Columbus has been playing a lot of games as well. Tampa Bay's only played 2 games in 3 nights. And before that, they had a long rest because they were supposed to play Dallas or something like that. And Columbus went out there and just, when you watch Columbus on the ice, they look, as a man almost, like we're better than you. They believe it. They believe in themselves right off the. Absolutely. And you would think that Tampa Bay was the old ex-champions, right? Where you would think that they would be on the ice thinking, okay, we got this. We're better than you, but they didn't look like that at all. They looked shocked again that the Blue Jackets were beating them at the same game that the Blue Jackets always beat them at. I've had a lot of respect for Cooper. He won a cup, but you just can't happen, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think Columbus also, with given playoff series each of the past 2 years, know how to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, and when they play their game that way, then they can always pull out wins against this team. And, I think Columbus plays with, Columbus knows they're not the most talented team, and I think they go into games knowing that they don't have the best roster on paper, but they go into every game just knowing that they're going to work harder than every opponent, and they're just going to outwork you. And they just play that grinding, physical, tight defensive style that they're like, we're just straight up going to outwork you. Night in and night out, we're going to outwork you every single night. And Columbus, they played Columbus Blue Jackets hockey against the Lightning on Saturday, and I mean, on top of it, they happen to score 5 goals as well, and Columbus isn't a team that does that a whole lot. So it was Columbus's best game of the season. I think that locker room got a huge boost from knowing that the whole Dubois saga was over. It's done with. It doesn't matter anymore, and they just got back to being the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, I think they have a sigh of relief, or whatever you want to say. And another trend that seems to be happening is Vasilevsky having poor starts. He's had a poor start last year. I can't remember the year before, but he didn't look good in this game either. And that has something to do with it as well. But I agree that it seems like Columbus just is almost effortlessly back in the groove again. And great coaches don't mind adversity at all. They use that to show their players that this is. When we're going to be Stanley Cup champions, adversities, we have to be able to get over it. And
we have to get through it.
We have to get through it, and they certainly showed that they could get through it again against Tampa that night. So we'll go over to the next game because it's hard for me to talk about. And because I'm a Flyers fan and you're a Bruins fan, so it should be interesting.
Fun night.
Yeah, of course it was. I had Bruins ML here. I got off my losing streak with this game, even though I didn't want them to win. But Bruins versus the Flyers. Just what do you take? What are your takes from that game? 6-1.
Just a beatdown. it was an absolute rout from the start. I don't know what's going on with the Flyers. They looked so good those first couple games to start the season, and I was really high on Philadelphia heading into this year, and I was like, wow, this team is going to be fantastic. And now I know they're going through some injury issues right now. Losing Myers obviously hurts off the back end. Losing Couturier up front is a massive loss, obviously. Selke Trophy winning #1 center, but I expected a lot more from Philadelphia, and the way that they played this past week just wasn't all that impressive, and I was shocked at how bad the Flyers looked in this game, because I thought they were much better, and they are a much better team than that. And I'm also really disappointed in the start that Carter Hart has had. His numbers are terrible to start this year. He's giving up a ton of goals. It's got to be up to like almost 4 goals a game now. I don't have the stats directly in front of me, but he's getting lit up, and that is not what you want from your franchise goaltender. So all around, just a brutal night for the Flyers. Boston took advantage of it, and it was nice as a Bruins fan to get the Bruins a big win like that, because they weren't starting the season all that great in their first 3 games. So for them to have a couple of big wins over the Flyers, I think has really helped set the Bruins' course back on track.
Yeah, and well, I'll say the Flyers have had a pretty tough schedule and I'm bringing up the schedule right now. They played, it's Monday, so I got to go back one. But I do believe they did have a pretty tough schedule, not as bad as like say Vancouver, which we'll talk about later. But they've been on the road a lot, and let's see, they've had New Jersey, Islanders. No, it didn't go back.
They started with 2 in Pittsburgh. They had 2 against Buffalo, and then 2 against Boston, I believe, has been their schedule.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not coming up here, but it's not. Okay, yeah, no, it's not going back for me. But yeah, it's pretty tough. The problem with Philadelphia, and I felt this before this season started. I was very concerned about their defense. Right, I still was very concerned when they signed Braun. I didn't like that signing. I didn't like. I mean, we went on. We already talked about it a lot about how much I didn't like Gustafsson, and we haven't liked him on the ice. Friedman looked like an absolute disaster out there on that game against Boston. And when you talk about Carter Hart, this is a goaltender that is known for being able to keep an even keel through everything. And at the end of that game, he lost his shit, right? He lost his mind. And
well, I don't exactly blame him with that defense, the way that they're playing in front of them. And their penalty kill is awful too. The Bruins, I don't know what the number is, but the Bruins scored a bunch of power play goals in those 2 games, and Saturdays as well. Let's see, Bergeron's first goal was on the power play. Marchand had a power play goal. Bergeron had another power play goal. So the Bruins scored 3 power play goals in that game. 3 of the 6 goals were on the man advantage. So Philly's defense and penalty killing is not helping out Carter Hart. But Carter Hart also only has a save percentage of .880 to start this season and a 4.18 goals against average. So you need more than that from your starting goaltender. No matter how bad the defense is, you can't have over 4 goals against per game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when his breaking of the stick there was not anger at his teammates, although you could say that he could rightfully be angry at them as well.
I'd be very frustrated just at how bad the season's gone for him so far.
Yeah, he's probably not happy with his own play. But I guess there was a quote afterwards talking about it, and he kind of did put the onus on his teammates a little bit, which was surprising to me that he did mention it even. It's not Carter Hart like. And what I was saying was, if you get a guy like Carter Hart to lose it like that, and even slightly mention the defense and stuff like that, that tells you your defense is really bad right now. Like really, really bad. And it is. It's just flat out bad. So they've got a schedule ahead of them where they got to turn things around. I believe they are now playing Washington next, or are they playing Boston again?
No, they've got New Jersey next.
New Jersey next. Okay.
They've got Jersey on Tuesday and Thursday, I believe.
Okay, my weekly schedule app is ruined. I can't get anything on that, so I'll have to take.
Philadelphia at New Jersey, 7:00 on Tuesday, and then Philadelphia at New Jersey on Thursday once again, and then on Saturday they go home and play the Islanders. And then they play the Islanders. No, they do not play the Islanders again. They have the Islanders again on Sunday. So they've got back-to-backs this coming weekend.
Right.
Against the Islanders. They've got a Saturday, Sunday, and then during the week they've got New Jersey on Tuesday and Thursday.
Yes, I got that up here now. They're at New Jersey again, so they're still on the road. They gotta find a way against a New Jersey team that I don't know if Blackwood's going to be back by then, but they've got we'll talk about that also with Wedgwood in net right now. But they've got an opportunity. New Jersey should be a team that they can beat, but New Jersey's been beating a lot of teams, so it's they've been playing very well, and then playing against a defensive system like the Islanders there. I mean, your defense has got to be turned around by them. These guys need some practice really quick. And
absolutely.
If they absolutely go downhill from, like, if they don't win at least 2 of these games, already you almost can feel the seat getting a little hot for AV, I think.
Wow, yeah. It seems early in the season to be saying that, but with a shortened year, again, you don't have the time to make up like you do in a normal season. So I think, the timeline for everything has been made shorter, and everything gets moved up a little bit because you just don't have the time to make up for it. With only 56 games. So, I mean, I still think the Flyers are a good team and they should be able to turn this around. But if they have another bad week, you might start to see things go a little crazy up there in Flyer land.
Oh, I can tell you right now, I'm a Flyers fan, and I was a Flyers fan not living in Philadelphia for the longest time, but now that we're part of Steel Flyers Network, I talk to Flyers fans a lot.
Yep.
The patience is not really one of their strong suits. They are losing their mind right now. So anyways, let's get to another very interesting game. It was Montreal against Vancouver. This was Vancouver playing their 7th game in 10 nights, and Montreal took it to them pretty darn good. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just same old same for both of these teams, kind of. Montreal's off to a great start, and they continue to just roll along. They're scoring a ton of goals. They're playing great hockey, and for Vancouver, it's been a really tough start, and another loss here against Montreal. And I know the Canucks have a pretty, valid, not excuse, but a valid reason for their slow start because they played so many games here early in the season. But at the same time, you really can't use it as an excuse because the points, the losses are still piling up. You're still not getting the points. So whether you have a valid reason to lose or not, you're still near the bottom of the standings and you're still racking up losses right now. So it's not going to make your fans feel any better. You're still 2-5. So the Canucks need to get things turned around, and they've got an upcoming series here with the Ottawa Senators where they need to win some games. Because if they don't win some of these games against Ottawa, they're going to find themselves in the basement of the North Division.
Yeah, well, and they're going to be playing. I think they're going to be fine. Honestly, I really do. If I had any concern throughout this, Pedersen is a concern. Even though he's smaller and it looks like he's having to. People are really focusing on teams are really focusing on Pedersen right now, and he's got to start upping his game even further to be able to be more of a factor in games, and that's just what great players have to do. It's just what happens when you start becoming great. The difference between great players and superstars are that they're gonna focus on you, and they are focusing on him. But my biggest problem, from what I saw, was Holtby and we both thought Demko was going to be great this year, but neither one of them have looked stellar. No, neither one of them looks stellar. That's my main concern in Vancouver right now.
The goals against are horrendous. They got given up 33 goals in 7 games.
Yeah, that's a lot of goals. Even if you're tired,
that's a problem. That's a real problem.
Huge. They did have injuries to Hellebuyck. No, not Hellebuyck. Hamonic. Yeah. If they had Hellebuyck, that wouldn't be as much of a problem. Hamonic and Edler. So those were 2 big losses, and they were playing some young kids in there that obviously don't appear to be ready. Levy's playing really high.
Chatfield got in some games, I think.
Chatfield got in some games, and last night they started getting some guys back. Jamie Benn was back last night, but I think it was just too little too late. They gave everything they had the game before, or was it? They had nothing left in this game at all. I watched it. They just had nothing left. So we're going to have to see now. They're going to get some rest, get home, turn things around right away, because you're right. It doesn't matter what the reason is. 2-7 to start the season is still hard to dig yourself out of, no matter what. They're going to have to. They're going to have the Pedersens move in, defense depth working, and definitely goaltending being much better than they were for that stretch. No doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. They cannot afford to lose many more games here without at least putting some sort of win streak together. They've got to string some wins and try to get back to 500 here.
Yeah. Hughes was not even playing well either.
No, he's not. It's been a really bad start for Vancouver.
Absolutely. I'm just waiting for my thing to come up, and we're going to talk about we'll just kind of go over the Blues and the Kings. Blues versus the Kings that game. Blues are, I think, just still trying to figure out their new members and Hoffman and stuff like that. They haven't looked terrible, but they haven't looked like the Blues of old consistently so far.
No, very inconsistent start to the year for the St. Louis Blues. Some nights they look like the cup-winning Blues, and other nights they look completely lost out there. And it totally depends, what Blues team shows up that night. And it's been a really interesting start for them, but very, very inconsistent.
Yeah, and LA, on the other hand, I liked before the season started. I had them making the playoffs, and I see them playing the same kind of a game. They played, even in that game, I watched that game. I was very impressed with the way they were throwing around their body, playing in the system that McClellan has made. Drew Dowdy, can I shout out Drew Dowdy? I've heard people talk some things about him dropping stuff, and he kind of has. He's older, but I just love him. I just love that guy. Like, I don't know if there's anybody in the league that has more compete than that guy, Drew Dowdy.
Yeah, Dowdy's had a decent start here, and he needed it because his numbers over the past few years have certainly tapered, and he hadn't been playing spectacular for them, and he is getting older, and the team, obviously, the last couple of years haven't been a great team as they kind of go through this rebuild, but he's got 4 points already to start the year. He's only taken 1 penalty, which is nice because that's something he's been doing over the past couple seasons, as we've seen him taking not smart penalties. He's still playing like 26 minutes a game. So for him to have 4 points already in 6 games to start the year, it's nice to see Drew Dowdy looking like Drew Dowdy is supposed to look.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I said, I would say he definitely looks a lot better than he has in the past.
Yes.
But even in the past, his compete level was still there. So whatever the issues were, his compete level was always there. He never stopped in that way. It just they just feed off his energy on this team. He is definitely their emotional and leader. And they play very well because of it. Mikey Anderson, we talked about him last time. He had a great game. They all really had. I mean, they had a good game and they almost pulled it off. But St. Louis looked like they were getting back to their old selves a little bit. They pushed back really well. Scandella got back in the lineup, which has been more of an addition to them than even I thought maybe it would have been.
Yeah. And Scandella is one of those very quiet, nothing flashy about him, but also very solid defensive defenseman. And, everywhere he's gone, whether it's been Minnesota, Montreal, Buffalo, now with the Blues, he's just been a really solid guy. And he's certainly not a guy that you want to be playing too many minutes or giving, top pair minutes to. But in the right role and in the right situations, he is a very, very solid stay-at-home guy who really helps solidify a decor and make the overall defense better for the team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we'll get into more about them when we get into the next games for Sunday, which we're a plethora of. Yep. I think when we had the Jets and the Senators, wasn't much of a game. I won't get too far into it except for to say that the Senators are still a long ways away. And I thought maybe they might be a little bit further ahead. But the more I've watched them here, the more I've realized that they still got quite a ways to go. So I'll just leave that at that, and we'll get into Sunday's games. Blackhawks and Red Wings. I had this game. I had the Blackhawks to win this game. But I'm going to just kind of talk about a couple points. First of all, I'll give a big high five. And I know Pius, that you're out there watching. Suter. Pius Suter with the hat trick. First goal of his career and first hat trick of his career, all in the same game.
Yeah, phenomenal showing for him. Really good to see him break out like that. And looks like another good young European player for the Chicago Blackhawks. They had Dominic Kubalik come over last year, and he ended up having a 30-goal season. And now Suter comes over, and he looks like a really good young European. So Chicago kind of definitely working out in that department. And it was a nice win for them. Obviously not the toughest of competition in the Red Wings, and also the Red Wings have a number of guys on the COVID list right now, so they're a little bit short-handed. I know Zadina's on it. Robbie Fabry's out. John Merrill they lost off the back end. So some pretty significant players, not like Dylan Larkin's on it, but still some tough players to lose out of your lineup if you're the Red Wings. And Chicago just straight up took advantage of it and got their second win of the season on Sunday, and 6-2 pretty much controlled the entire game. It was just a really nice win for Chicago, but I think someone definitely worth talking about is Kevin Lankinen.
I was just about to say that.
The goaltender who's taken over now for the Blackhawks. I mean, that was going to be the big thing that sunk the Blackhawks this year was their goaltending, because they went in with D'Elia and Subban. Well, now this Lankinen kid has come out of nowhere and played extremely well. So, he might be an answer in goal here, at least in the interim, for the Blackhawks. And if he continues to play like this, I think the Hawks could be better this year than I originally thought when they were going to have D'Elia and Subban as their goaltenders.
Oh, Peyton on the radio is here. Hey, Peyton on the radio. Hi, and Capper's Comparison Range is here. Have you seen any of Capper Comparison stuff, Range?
No, I have not.
Check him out. He's great. He does.
Definitely will do.
I'll tell you what he does real quick. Well, we talk about that. Lankinen they were in Chicago. They were stressing this all summer. We love Lankinen. We love Lankinen. And you know what? It looks like they might have a reason to love Lankinen. And so they don't, it all makes sense now, right? Crawford's gone and, Taves freaks out because he loves his, buddy. It was his buddy, let's face it. Taves is a heart and soul guy. He doesn't like to see his guys leave and all that. I don't blame him for what he did. But they love this kid, and he certainly looks like he might be heading in that right direction. But Capper's Comparison, what he does is he takes cappers, which are, handicappers, and he has a little board, and he writes down all the cappers and what their picks are for every game, and tells you about it, and then he puts his own pick in. And it's pretty cool. I like it. It's fun. His daughter's there, and they do the Pearlo dance, my Pearlo dance, every once in a while. So it's fun. Nice. It's a lot of fun. I'd highly recommend you check it out. But yeah, that game, I did watch it. Detroit, I mean, they can't afford to have injuries at all. That lineup's already missing things before they get started. So having injuries or COVID-related stuff for them is pretty much a knife in the heart.
Absolutely, yeah. Listen, I think the Red Wings are better than they were last year, and I like what they've done this offseason, but it's still a ways away for the Detroit Red Wings. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, we'll go to the next game, which was a very interesting game, and after getting shellacked badly on my nights before, I kind of faded this, but I normally probably would have took the Bruins to win this because of the injuries or COVID-related issues that the Washington Capitals are having. You weren't able to watch this game, I don't think you were saying, but I'm gonna say that the Sabres, even though Washington had the injuries, it's looking like the Sabres have some heart this year. Have you watched any of the Sabres this year?
Yeah, I've seen the Sabres. I watched them. What games did I see? I know I watched the one where they routed Philadelphia. And I watched one other. I think it was one of the games against Washington, but not this one. But the Sabres definitely have a little bit of heart this year, and they're not just rolling over and giving up like we've seen with the Sabres teams of the past. And this was a big win for them. They go into this weekend series, Friday and Sunday against Washington. Washington's missing some key players. They end up dropping the first game, but then they come back in the second game and get a shootout win and get 2 points that they really, really needed. So that was good to see from Buffalo, and they're definitely just, they're not mailing it in this season. They're not giving up on this season. They've got some heart in that lineup for sure.
Yeah, you're definitely seeing pushback, and that's something that we haven't seen from Buffalo for a long time. For a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, back to when there was like the French Connection or the like way back. Well, back when Hasek was playing, at least. It's been a long time since they've been able to find that. And kudos to Hall, because Hall has been has this cloud over him about being a problem in the room, which I kind of didn't necessarily agree with. Hall's biggest problem from when he was in Edmonton Oilers was that he was like almost too competitive. Like he would get to the point where he was talking down to people and stuff like that, which I guess is a problem in the room. But it comes from a place where Hall just wants to win. He really, really wants to win. Jack Eichel's been having a great year this year. He could, if Buffalo does find a way to make the playoffs, he could be MVP this year.
Definitely, yeah. Eichel's a superstar. We know how good he is, and it's just for Buffalo, it was about getting a team around him that was actually good enough to take them as far as Jack Eichel is capable of taking them. And obviously the Hall edition has been big in getting him, and another big scorer up into that lineup. And I think the Eric Staal addition, too, giving them a legitimate 2C is kind of an overlooked move a little bit. And that has played a big role in Buffalo being more competitive this year, is because it's not just Eichel and then a bunch of nobodies down the middle. Having Eric Staal as your second-line center is a real big addition for the Sabres.
Especially the way he's been playing. He's sort of it feels like he has a new life there in Buffalo, a new purpose. That purpose, I think, part of it was to get Skinner going, and it's not working. That's the one thing that's
Skinner's been playing on the fourth line.
Horrible. 11 minutes a night for a $9 million player. Do you not come into the room eventually and go, shouldn't something spark you to go, I need to do something for my teammates here or something?
I can't imagine not, but I don't know what's going on there. But he literally had he had the 140 goal season, and it's been off a cliff since. And it doesn't seem like he's going to be climbing back up the mountain anytime soon.
Yeah, and Carolina seems to know what they were doing when they traded him away for virtually nothing. It almost appeared to me that his whatever it is that he is was known around the league. I don't know if he likes the high life and he's out partying a lot, or if he's what it is about him. But I mean, Carolina was trying to trade him for probably a year and a half before they did, and couldn't find a taker. So somebody had to know something.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's the kind of thing that I think gets out around the league, and GMs know and coaches know. And I think there was a reason that there wasn't much of a market for Jeff Skinner. And if you look at his career, his entire career, he's so inconsistent. He'd have big spikes here and there and then just drop right off again. And I knew as soon as they signed that deal that it was a horrible contract. And I knew that he was probably never going to hit 40 goals again after that 140 goal season. And he hasn't come close, and it looks like it's going to be another terrible year for Jeff Skinner. And like I said, Buffalo's been playing him on the fourth line with Curtis Lazar, and I'm not sure who's playing the right side right now, but $9 million a year for a fourth liner, that is brutal. And a long time left on that contract too.
Yeah, that's the kind of contract that can just wreck the organization. Honestly, it can.
Yeah, because think 3 years down the road from now, let's say Buffalo is actually making those next strides to be a good team and actually compete and be a contending team. You're not going to be able. Think of what you're going to miss out on in free agency or in trades because you have $9 million locked up in Jeff Skinner and don't have the cap space to do anything.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do there. Staal was brought in, I believe, because he used to play with them. That maybe he would have been able to unlock something in Jeff Skinner or something like that. I think part of the reason why Skinner wasn't, they couldn't find a market or a trade for him was the fact that he was demanding this $9 million a year. And they would go to talk. Oh, I have interested in Jeff Skinner. He's a 30-goal scorer. Can we talk to his agent? And I think whoever was Ron Francis or whoever was the general manager there at the time winced as soon as they heard the words, "Can I talk to his agent?" Because they couldn't find anybody that was willing to give him the $9 million a year that apparently he wanted. And sure enough, here comes Buffalo.
Yeah, of all teams.
Yeah, they seem to be able to do stuff like that, and it's devastating for them right now. I don't know what the answer is for it. It could be just an absolute anchor. And it's not just that. It's again, like I said, about going to the room every day and people looking at him. It's like the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Here's this guy making $9 million a year for our team, playing on the fourth line because he plays a perimeter game and won't go in he actually, it was Jim Rutherford who gave Skinner his contract.
No, it was Jason Botterill.
It was Jason Botterill that gave him the contract. Yeah.
It was Jason Botterill who gave Skinner the 7-year deal at $9 million per season.
Yeah, it was Jason Botterill.
It was after his first year in Buffalo, he scored 40 goals. Then Botterill gives him a massive contract for $9 million a year, and then he scored 13 goals last year, and he's off to a rip-roaring start this year to probably score another 10 to 13 at best.
If you're lucky, yeah.
Buffalo would be happy. Jeff Skinner is committing highway robbery of the Buffalo Sabres right now.
Yeah, like at this point, I think you're just hoping he gets injured or something. I hate to say that.
LTIR would be the best place for him.
Maybe you can convince him. Maybe he doesn't really want to play hockey anymore, because when I watch him on there, he doesn't look like he wants to play hockey. It almost looks... Sorry, go ahead.
He has no goals, 1 assist on the season, and he's playing like 10, 11 minutes a night.
Yeah, he's playing 10, 11 minutes a night, and he doesn't look good at all. It almost looks like hockey's sort of a sidebar for him. Like, oh, it's time to go to the rink. I'll be back in 2 hours, guys, whatever he's doing. You know what I mean? Like,
it's only 28. It's like, it's a little early to be thinking about retirement, bud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Carolina had to ship him out because Brind'Amour didn't want Skinner with the Canes. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
No, I wonder why.
That is true, but neither did the previous coach.
Yeah, I bet Ralph Kruger doesn't want him with those Sabres either, but they're stuck with him now after that contract.
Yeah, they're stuck with them, and that's the problem. Is you're stuck with Skinner. 4th line minutes. My gosh, I just can't fathom. Like, I knew when he signed that $9 million contract wasn't going to work, wasn't going to go well. But to think he was going to go this bad, I thought at least he'd be a 20-25 goal scorer on the second line or something. This is absolutely the worst contract in the league, maybe, I would have to say. Yeah, it'd have to be the worst.
I think at this point it's a no-brainer that Jeff Skinner's contract is the worst in the league. I mean, there are bad contracts out there, but $9 million. I mean, the Lucic contract's terrible, but it's not where it was. What, $6 million? Like
6, yeah.
The Okposo contract's really bad, but that was like what, 5.5. Like, none of those bad contracts actually like live up to $9 million a year for a guy playing on your 4th line.
Yeah, I think this
absolutely brutal.
I think the second worst might be Eriksson in Vancouver. Actually, he's sort of the same way.
Or Andrew Ladd getting $5.5 million to not even play.
Yeah, at least it's injury related with Andrew Ladd.
Yeah, that's true.
Eriksson doesn't have any injuries because Eriksson doesn't go anywhere where injuries happen. So he is absolute floater out there all the time. And the worst part about Eriksson is he comes to the rink, and I don't know if it's the same about Skinner, but Eriksson comes to the rink like there's no problem whatsoever. Like he's surprised he's not playing in the top 6, and oh my gosh, just like that's a terrible contract as well. But I get the idea that maybe it's the same for Skinner there too. Hey, NHL News Reports, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Yeah, do you know Lauren Darkin? Does he ever come on yours?
No.
No? Okay, well, he will. Lauren's fantastic. We sit here. He's a big Carolina fan. We talk about Carolina Hurricane all the time.
Maybe he hasn't. I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's so many. So many, like all the names run together, and I try and keep track of everybody. But
that's what happens when you're the GOAT. You just have swarms of fans climbing all over you all the time. You can't name them all. Come on.
No, but people will say something. They'll be like, "Do you remember me from this?" And then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, now I do." I usually need something to jog my memory.
Yeah, I know Lauren very well. He comes on lives all the time, and he's fantastic. So yeah, Buffalo. That anchor of a contract is going to be heading over them all the time. We talked about Ristolainen last time. I heard, is this true?
He played well.
He has played the best hockey of his career by far,
Yes.
no doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt about it. And what a sigh of relief that is.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that I've been ragging on for a while now, throughout his whole career, really. And I mean, there were a lot of issues there. He was being treated like a number one defenseman when he's really not a number one defenseman. And I was never a big Risto fan, but he is playing phenomenal hockey to start this season. He's chewing a ton of minutes. Plays high 20s some nights, mid 20s at least every night.
Yep.
And he's playing it's the best I've ever seen Rasmus Ristolainen look on NHL ice.
By far. And I was with you on that. I was not a Risto fan. He was over aggressive in the defensive zone a lot of the time, and then he couldn't find the balance. He was either over aggressive or not aggressive at all. There was no in between with him, and he just couldn't find the balance. But it looks like he has now. Did you hear something? And I wanted to check up on this, but I forgot to. I heard that Rasmus Dahlin was benched for a little bit a while there. Did you hear anything about that?
I did hear that, but I don't know if it's true or not. I just saw that on Twitter. But I'm not entirely sure. I can check the ice time and see how much he played, because you can generally tell if their ice time is significantly less than what it normally is. And let's see. Dahlin played 22:47.
Yeah.
He played almost 7 minutes on the power play, so that doesn't exactly.
Well, he wasn't a bench for that game. It was a previous game, and they're saying that you're low again. So I'm going to go check what's going on here. I don't know why you'd be low. I'm going to put it on full and see if it's better, because I have everything off except that. So we'll try that now. I have all my NDI sources off and all that. It bodes well for the Buffalo Sabres if Risto keeps on improving and growing in that defense, because
Dahlin was benched in the game that they lost on Friday. He only played 10 minutes.
That's what it was. And
it's -2.
-2. Okay. So he obviously did something that they're not happy with. And you know what I like about that is that Ralph Kruger, who I've talked highly about, and I've taken my driven because of it, because Buffalo hasn't had success, and I still stick with it. I think he's a great coach. It's probably the best signing that one of the best things Buffalo's ever made. It tells me that Dahlin is not treating him like a kid anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Dahlin needs to be their number one defenseman. If the Buffalo Sabres are going anywhere, Rasmus Dahlin needs to be their number one defenseman, and he needs to be a legitimate number one defenseman in the league. And if, obviously he wasn't having a good game up to that point, and they threw him on the bench, and you know what? That's probably where he belongs. I love when coaches send a message and use the seat on the bench as a teaching point for especially younger players. Where, listen, this is the NHL. If you're not going to perform, I don't care if you were drafted in the first round or the seventh round or not at all. If you're not going to perform, you're not going to play. And usually players get the message there pretty quickly once they start spending some time on the pine.
Yeah, they get the message, and the good thing about it is they have. I heard a great coach say, because I was benched once or twice in my career, and I heard a great coach say to me one time. He said, "Take me out afterwards and say you had a bad game. It's nothing personal. I just needed better people on the ice than you tonight." But what he said was, "You can do us a big favor by handling this like a man, and going out there and playing and owning up to yourself and all of that stuff like that." And at first I was complaining about it, and I love that what he said was, "I appreciate that you want to be on the ice. I do appreciate that, because you can have players that just don't even act like they want to be on the ice." And we just talked about one, like Skinner.
First part of the show with one.
Yeah, exactly. But you can turn this into a huge plus, and I thank him for that. His name is Dale Durden. He was one of the best coaches I ever have, and I know you're watching out there. Thank you very much. You didn't make me into an NHLer, but you certainly helped me become a man. That was a great coach. Here's a question for you from NHL Hockey News. You know him very well.
Yes.
Do you think Middlestat has a future with the Sabres?
Probably not. It's taken long enough with Middlestat here, and I remember, he had that massive juniors performance, and there was so much hype surrounding him, and the Sabres tried to play him up at the NHL level way too early. He wasn't ready, but now he's 22. He's looked not great. He's gotten into one game this season. He does have an assist, but they played him 31 games last year, and he only had 9 points, and that's when he ended up getting sent down. I don't know. I feel like there are going to be other guys, especially as the Sabres get more and more of these young guys in and more draft picks in, that are going to overtake him, unless Casey Middlestat really has a breakout at the NHL level. But from what I've seen so far, it's not been overly impressive from him, and he's got to get it going quick if he's going to stay a Buffalo Sabre and play in the NHL lineup on a regular basis. But I think the clock's ticking with Casey Middlestat as a Sabre, unless he really takes off this season or something like that.
Yeah, and when they drafted him, I mean, big guy, nice hands, looked really good. But he's sort of like the Ristolainen of their forwards. He can't seem to figure out aggression, non-aggression. Like he looks lost too much on the ice. Confidence issues, whatever it is. Like Ristolainen, he's got to turn it off. And I would say he's not going to have the same advantage as Aristo, because Buffalo really had nobody to put in that spot. And Risto, they kept. Yeah,
they didn't have a defenseman to replace Risto, but they've got Dylan Cousins, who's just about there, and is only 19. And I think Cousins is going to get that look at the NHL level more than Middlestat here, unless Middlestat really starts putting some points on the board and actually showing something.
At the very least, he's got to start showing some grit and hitting ability, so at least he can hold a fourth line, right? If you're not going to be playing on your top line, you better be able to at least be some energy and some muscle with that size. He's a good size. And if he can play with some muscle.
I don't see him playing that way. I think he's more of a skill, hand, speed type player. And I think the clock's ticking with Middlestat in Buffalo, I think. Because Cousins is going to take that spot, and that's going to be the end of it.
Oh, they're wanting to talk a lot about Buffalo today, and that's good because this is a great team to talk about. Do you guys think Hall re-signs with Buffalo?
No. Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs this year, so it's going to be another losing season. And I think Hall's there to put up numbers with Jack Eichel and then try and cash in on something longer term this offseason after a big season. Again, not sure how that's going to work, but I don't see him going back to Buffalo unless he just really doesn't care about winning a Stanley Cup. And then maybe if he legitimately doesn't really care if he wins a cup or not and just wants the biggest contract he can get, then actually maybe he does stay, because Buffalo will probably give him the biggest offer that he'll get. But if he actually wants to win a Stanley Cup, Buffalo is not the place to be.
Yeah. That was, by the way, that was Akuma's Deception. Thank you very much. And thanks for coming in. You're a Leafs fan, I see. That's interesting. I think I'll put my lead on that. Here's the thing with Hall, and this has been a problem pretty much for him everywhere he goes. His agent won't sign contracts till the off season, and so they won't commit to staying up until now. So if Buffalo is going to go to the trade deadline and they're out of the playoffs, do you think they're going to sit and wait like say New Jersey did or anybody else did, hold on to him and let him go for nothing? I think Buffalo signed this contract with with a backdoor idea of getting a whole bunch of prospects and picks for him at the deadline, don't you?
Well, he would have to be in on that because he has a no movement clause in his deal. So he would have to agree to any sort of trade at the deadline. I don't know. I don't know what Taylor Hall wants, because if Taylor Hall wants to win, Buffalo is not the place to be. But if Taylor Hall wants a big contract, Buffalo is probably his best bet. And, Buffalo is not anywhere close to being Stanley Cup level. I mean, they haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. And just because they have Jack Eichel, doesn't mean they're anywhere near Cup level. I mean, look at the Edmonton Oilers. They've got McDavid and Draisaitl, who are two of the top 5 players in the league, and they got beat pretty handily by a 12-seed Chicago team in the playoffs last year. So the Oilers aren't really close to Stanley Cup level. Now, the Oilers are playoff level, but I don't see them really as Stanley Cup level. The Sabres aren't even playoff level. So you're nowhere near a Stanley Cup there in Buffalo. So if he wants to win it all, Buffalo is not the place to be. But if he doesn't really care about the winning side of things and just wants that big contract, then the Sabres will probably give it to him. I mean, they gave Jeff Skinner $9 million. That means they ought to give Taylor Hall 12.
Yeah, if they're going to give Taylor Hall $12 million, well, yeah, you're definitely. Then you got Eichel, him, and Skinner, pretty much almost half your cap. So
I wasn't serious about giving him 12.
I know.
Sabres kind of thing to do.
Even 10, even 10. Like, it's that's a lot of money for 3 players that we already see in the Oilers. It doesn't work out all that well. I don't think he's going to go either. I think, yes, he would have to agree to it, but they're not going to trade him to anybody except a team that's going to be looking to win the Cup. The question is, can they at that time fit the $5 million prorated into their cap system, and he can go try to win a cup and then try to hit the big one again the following year. And it's just a constant merry-go-round with Hall. It seems to me that he signed that contract because it was the biggest contract, and that was it, pretty much. Yeah. So that's to answer your question there. The other the second question onto that one was, do you think Eichel has any pull in that situation? And I mean, what's that?
Eichel's got a lot of pull, but again, I don't think it's going to come down to if he wants to win or not. Because as we've seen, just Jack Eichel isn't enough to be a Stanley Cup contender, just like just Connor McDavid isn't enough to be a Stanley Cup contender. You've got to have a team that is with cup-winning ability around those guys, and that's what teams like Tampa Bay have that these other teams with the superstars don't. I mean, Tampa Bay's got the high-end talent, like, Kucherov's not playing this year, but Kucherov, they got Stamkos, they got Braden Point, they got Hedman on the back end. They have these elite players, but then they have a Stanley Cup team around those guys in their depth roles as well. These other teams don't have that level of depth around them, and they're not cup-level teams. They have the superstar, but they don't have the team around them.
Yeah, I'm thinking off the top of my head where he might go. We'll have to see come trade deadline where some team might take a chance on him that could put them over the top. I'm trying to think of that off the top of my head, but it's not coming to me at the moment.
It's going to be hard cap-wise. The good teams don't have any cap space left right now, for the most part.
One team I could see possibly could still have cap space at that time is the team we were just talking about. Maybe the Columbus Blue Jackets try to pick him up for the rest of the season. So they have, Columbus Blue Jackets with scores like Laine and Hall, the way they play, could do some damage.
Yeah, and another one is maybe Nashville. Nashville's got $4.3 million in cap space still, which is pretty close to most in the not. They're top 6, 7 here. They're 7th in the league in most cap space. So. Nashville's a team that if they're in a playoff position, in that 3rd or 4th spot in the Central, heading into, towards the trade deadline, then maybe they could pull a move like that and get some more scoring in there, because there aren't many competitive teams that have that much cap space, because, most of your teams are pretty well capped out here that are actual contenders.
Yeah, you might have to they could take a contract back plus picks as well as a possible thing that could happen. Like, just thinking off the top of my head, the teams that would definitely need scoring, like the Islanders or, that will probably in the mix at that time. I don't know what it would be, but I'm sure they can find somebody that would take Hull for extra scoring come that time. So, anyways, we got a couple more games to look at. Actually, we got a lot of games to look at, so we better get moving. Lightning round. Toronto Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames. Somebody was just asking. We have a Leafs fan in the room here, so we might as well talk about that. Now, I'm going to say a little bit about the Leafs from what I've seen so far. I am very impressed with how well they've been playing with this very tough schedule that they've had.
Yeah, Leafs look good. That was a really impressive win over Calgary too. I mean, to go on the road, you got your backup goaltender playing in Chad Campbell, and to pull out a 3-2 low-scoring win like that. Also, was that the game? That wasn't the game Austin Matthews missed.
No, he actually was in for this one, and I didn't realize that.
He played this game. He missed the game before.
Yeah.
But they get Matthews back. He's still probably not at 100%. But they get Matthews back, and they pull out a pretty tight, low-scoring game like that. That's a big win for the Leafs, and I've really liked Toronto so far. I think they look good, and they're going to be up there in the North Division all year long. And the defense is better. They've still got the scoring prowess, and now they're starting to be able to, show that they can win some of these close games and some of these lower scoring games. That's huge for them.
Yeah, I happened to watch this game, and Calgary was they were doing terrible dumping the puck in. Like, if you're Brian Burke said it too. It said it best. If you're going to dump the puck in, you want to be putting it in a place where you can compete for the puck.
And go get it,
yeah. And they were doing a terrible job of that. And against Toronto's puck-moving system that they have, which, by the way, has been beautiful to watch this year. Their puck moving out of their zone and passing through the neutral zone has been awesome. Really good. And if you're going to play a team like that, you better be able to get that puck in there and beat them up in the corners, because they're going to ruin you. And the low-scoring game did not give the game justice. Toronto really did outplay Calgary most of that game.
Yeah. I mean, it's been impressive. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot more to say about the Leafs. It's been impressive, and I think they've gotten better in the areas where they needed to get better, and that makes Toronto an even scarier team. And they're looking good here out of the gate. So they're a team that is going to be a force all season long, and I think they have a real shot. I certainly think that some other teams are right there with them, but they're going to be very, very competitive all year long.
Yeah, well, and they're doing this with a very tough schedule. They played a lot of games, and they've been very impressive. Tired. We talked about the Vancouver Canucks, who I think even had a more difficult schedule, but still, Toronto. I think the teams that are going to make it and be successful this year are going to be teams that are able to get through these runs, where you're going through the 4 and 6s and the 7s and 10s and 11s and stuff like that. So they've impressed me. And Campbell, you mentioned Campbell. Well, how valuable is that? And what a pickup that was for them. Late blooming goaltender that has looked really, probably the best he's ever looked in his career this year already. He's just improving every year.
Yeah, I mean, look around the league. How it's so important to have two legitimate goaltenders, and having a real backup for your starter is a massive plus for any team, and it's a big plus for Toronto. And now, they don't have to rely as heavily on Freddie Anderson, and give Anderson some more nights off and let him be a little bit more rested heading into the playoffs. it's absolutely huge. And Campbell's looked really, really good, and he's played well. And it's a nice thing to have if you're the Leafs, to have a legitimate number 2 goaltender who can play games and keep you in games and have you, the night off for the starter shouldn't be an automatic loss. And I think when you look at some teams, you see that the starter get the night off and you go, oh boy, that's not good. And other teams, they have 2 goaltenders, and the teams with 2 goaltenders generally it works out well for them.
Well, especially in this year, we've talked about it to no end how much having 2 goaltenders is necessary right now. And it's just I always liked Campbell, but last night in particular, he was just on fire. I mean, he was really stopping everything and looking very confident, and that bodes well for Toronto in the next little while here. Now, Toronto played on the road. They're still on the road, and they play the Oilers next. I'm shaking a little bit as an Oilers fan with that. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the Oilers game that they did happen to pull through, but not in the most convincing fashion whatsoever. So we'll go to, what do we got? Somebody who's asking about Minnesota. Did Minnesota play? Well, yeah, they did. Minnesota. We'll go to the Minnesota game because one of the people in the chat room asked about it. We won't talk. Yep. The question was asked by News Weekly or what? I'll look it up in a second because I can't see it at the moment. But are the Wild for real? Are they going to be able to keep up somewhere in the pace that they're at right now? Have you watched a lot of the Wild this year? Or any of the Wild?
I haven't seen a ton of the Wild, but obviously they've gotten off to a decent start here. They're 4-2. They haven't played the toughest competition yet, so I'm reserving judgment on the Minnesota Wild until they play teams like Colorado, teams like St. Louis, teams like Vegas, because their wins so far, they've played LA, they've played Anaheim, they've played who'd they just lose to? San Jose. So they're not exactly playing the cream of the crop in that division. Now, can the Wild be a playoff team? Absolutely. Particularly in that division, that 4th spot, I think is going to be completely up for grabs this year. I think we have a pretty good idea of who the top 3 teams are, but that 4th spot's completely up for grabs, and the Wild have a very real shot of getting it. But I'm going to reserve judgment, with Minnesota until I see them play those other top teams in that division, because they've played some of the weaker California teams, and I want to see them and how they look against Colorado and how they look against Vegas and teams like that before you get a true feel of how good or not the Minnesota Wild are.
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of Minnesota this year, and we were talking about it before the season started with Dean Evison, and he seems to be a good motivator, and Minnesota plays a very motivated game. Watching them, you see kind of why Guerin chose to bring over Bonino. He actually has been a presence on the ice out there for them, and a stabilizing factor as far as being a veteran is concerned. He gives an air of confidence that Minnesota hasn't had in the last little while. That's kind of what their issue was. They didn't have that guy that you just feel like we just mentioned about some of the other players. Foligno in Columbus has that air. There's just something about them that helps everybody feel like they can win that game. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And having those kind of veteran guys in the locker room is always a huge help. And I know some of Minnesota's offseason moves had me scratching my head a little bit, but they're off to a good start. And might be because Bill Guerin knows more than I do. And it might be Bill Guerin's a GM in the NHL for a reason. And I'm here talking about hockey on YouTube for a reason. Minnesota's done well to start. Again, I just want to see them face those tougher teams before I really make a true judgment, because while they've won 4 out of their first 6 games, they haven't exactly played the toughest opponents yet this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's been a pretty small sample size right now
Yeah.
of them, and we saw last year where at the end of the regular season they looked like they were the best team in the league, and then they came up against Vancouver, and Vancouver handled them fairly easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did, and we'll see what happens here with the Wild, but it's going to be an interesting season. I think they're going to be fighting for that playoff spot all the way through to the end.
Yeah, I do too. I think they're going to be in there. I like the way Eck has played. I like the way Greenway is playing, actually.
Yep.
There is definitely some improvement there, and how far that improvement goes, I don't know. But since we're talking about that division and who might make the playoffs, why don't we go to the LA Kings again? We didn't talk much about them the last time because in this game, I watched them in this game, and they played absolutely lights out. And this is why I picked the Kings to slightly edge out Minnesota in this division because the Kings to actually make the playoffs in this division because McClellan, I loved him all along, and when he was in the Oilers for the Oilers, he got a lot of crap for what happened there, and I said it's not his fault at all. I don't think so. I think he's a great coach, and he's gone to the Kings, and he's done what I always thought he could do. That team is playing well above their heads.
Yeah, and we saw this towards the end of last year where the Kings started to really get rolling and start playing well, and it seems to be carrying over. They're 2-2-2 to start the year. I mean, there's obviously still a ways to go. They're a very young team, but you're starting to see those strides get made, and I think it's safe to say now the Kings are coming out of that rebuild, and they're looking to take that next step, and they very well could make the playoffs this year, and I think they will be right there competing with Minnesota for that fourth playoff spot, and I think San Jose could possibly get themselves in there as well, but the Kings are going to be right there in that division, and the Kings are proving that whether they win or lose, they're going to play hard every single night. And those teams are tough to beat, even for good teams that go into the game kind of expecting to win. Those are tough games to win because your opponent is just going to be working every single night, trying to, scrap away and get those 2 points. And the Kings, I think, are going to be a team that steal a lot of wins this year from teams that they shouldn't necessarily be on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I thought. I just love the system that they put down. I like the way everybody plays within the system. They're a big team too. They're big. They're Lizotte and Velarde, who I'm surprised has not been getting a lot of minutes so far this year. He's been getting only about 12, 13 minutes a night, but he's still managing to put up points and put up points 5-on-5. We mentioned also before the season started, and we saw a little bit of maybe something to be concerned about right off the top, simply because it was popped out at you with St. Louis Blues. Ville Husso did not have a good game last night, and that's their backup right now, and we were afraid of that, weren't we?
Yeah, when they let Jake, or they traded, they didn't just let him go. They traded Jake Allen to Montreal. That was a move that I thought was extremely good for Montreal, and a little bit of a head scratcher for the Blues. Now, I get it was cap related. The Blues didn't want to pay him, and obviously Husso is a much cheaper backup goaltender option. But the other side of that is now you don't have that solid, proven backup to go behind Jordan Binnington. And Jordan Binnington hasn't been all that great either himself. He kind of struggled a bit. It was terrible in the playoffs last year. Didn't have as good of a regular season last year as he did when he first came into the league, and now he's off to kind of a shaky start this year as well. So we don't even know if Binnington is the long-term answering goal there with St. Louis either. So their goaltending situation is a little bit worrisome because you have a shaky starter that's really, you don't know what you're going to get night in and night out, and then you have a completely unproven young backup who's just getting his first taste of NHL action. that's kind of a scary goaltending spot to be in if you're the Blues.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about going into the season, and it's starting to rear its kind of uglyish head right now. Anyways, Binnington as well. I mean, he's been up and down, up and down. When he's up, he's great. When he's not, it's very very inconsistent. The NHL Hockey News reports mentioned Kakkonen that we didn't talk about in Minnesota. He did have a very solid game. He's looked really good. And that's kind of a storyline for a number of teams. Lankinen in Chicago, Kakkonen in Minnesota is working his way up. And then we had Ville Husso, who, out of those, I had the most questions with him because he didn't really have the greatest AHL numbers. So coming up from the AHL when you didn't have very good numbers to begin with, was a big concern in a shortened season like this, like you said. Like that even stretches it out even more that, Montreal realized, and somebody asked about Montreal, they asked about Nick Suzuki being a beast. Montreal realized how important it was going to be. What's that?
Suzuki, that kid's unreal.
Oh, he's a great two-way center. He has upside is... Who knows? He reminds me of Barzal in a way, but maybe even a slicker passer than Barzal. He's great. But Montreal identified that early. They picked up Allen like right away. It was right away for them. And we were questioning, okay, what's St. Louis going to do now? And they didn't. And they talked about, like Chicago did, about them liking Lankinen, and they liked Husso. And we were like, okay, why? Because his numbers in the AHL don't look so good. So we thought maybe they know something we don't. And so far, not so much. It hasn't really worked out for them.
Yeah, and that's been Husso's only start so far was that game where he gave up the 6 goals to the Kings. So we'll see what happens as his career kind of goes along and he gets in some more games and some more action under his belt. But obviously not a great start. And there's definite questions there. And I commend the Canadians for going out and getting a real backup for Carey Price. And for the first time in quite a while, I think that's going to do wonders for them over the course of this season. And Price is going to be a lot better and fresher for the playoffs than he ever has been because he's not going to have to shoulder as many games as he normally has had to for the Canadians. So backup goaltenders are massively important now in the NHL. The days of riding a starter for, obviously this season's shorter, but the days of riding a starter for 70 out of 82 games are gone. You just don't see teams doing that anymore like they were kind of back in the 90s and back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Goalies they're not going to play 70 games a year anymore.
Oh.
It's just too much and they're burnt out come playoff time.
Yeah.
So having that legitimate good backup who can play a fair number of games or even give you like a 60-40 split or a 65-35 split really benefits a team going into the playoffs. And I think we're going to see that with the Canadians on the positive side with Jake Allen, and it might be a negative for the Blues because they're not going to be able to play Husso too much, and Binnington is going to have to shoulder a lot of those games.
Right, absolutely. And now we can segue, since we're talking about goaltenders, we'll go to the game that started two very unproven goaltenders, the New York Islanders and the New Jersey Devils. Now, going into this, it would have seemed to me on the surface that the Islanders with Wedgwood in net for New Jersey in back-to-back games because Blackwood is, I believe, having COVID issues.
Yes.
Yeah, it would seem to me that the Islanders should have the upper hand on this game, although they have been on the road for a bit. But I didn't know until game time that they started their new fancy schmancy Ilya Sorokin in this game.
Yeah.
And so I watched this game quite a bit. I was very interested. And I thought Sorokin did fairly well, but came out in the losing end because Wedgwood, who I would not have thought that Wedgwood, who really has been a minor leaguer his whole career, would have outshone Sorokin in this game.
Yeah, and it ends up 2-0 in favor of New Jersey, which 2-0 is exactly the kind of game that the Islanders normally want to play.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't get anything going offensively. Obviously, they didn't score a goal. And that's not Sorokin's fault at all. I think Sorokin played fine, and he only gave up a couple goals. It's not like you can really blame the goalie for that. That was just a poor performance in front of him by the Islanders. And they just, that's the issue with New York, is that some nights they just don't have that offense and they don't have that scoring. And this was definitely one of those nights. And for New Jersey, it's big. Every game that they win without Mackenzie Blackwood is a game that they probably shouldn't win. So for them to steal a win like this, that's big for New Jersey, because when Blackwood does come back, I think New Jersey is going to be a competitive team. And, with how good he was playing to start this year before he had to go on the COVID list, New Jersey looked like a team that could maybe make a surprise run at a playoff spot. So New Jersey continues their strong start here. They're 3-1-1 to start the year, and to pick up a W without Blackwood over a team like the Islanders, who are supposed to be pretty significantly better than you, that's a big W for New Jersey.
Well, especially when you consider they're also Nico Hischier and Bratt and the Vatanen, who they brought in for their defense. Defense was supposed to still be an issue for New Jersey this year, and here they get a shutout.
With their backup goaltender.
With a backup goaltender. Like Wedgwood isn't, I don't even know, because Dell is not, they acquired Dell from Toronto, and I think he's got more NHL experience and is likely going to be their backup whenever he can come over. So it's absolutely enormous. And I watched that game. The Islanders looked probably the worst game I've seen the Islanders play for a very long time. The Islanders are usually a pillar of consistency. And when they lose, they usually still look good when they lose. And they did not look good at all. Kudos to New Jersey. I can't say it was because of the way New Jersey played so much that knocked them off their game even. Just New York Islanders, I guess it can happen to anyone. They just had an off night. It's the only way I can describe it. I was watching that game, and of course I had the Islanders ML. But and the only time I don't take the Islanders when you get 5.5 is that game, because I figure they could rack it up against Wedgwood, right? And he gets a freaking shutout. So
the way it goes sometimes.
Sometimes things just happen against the odds, and that was one of those games for sure that I could say that. I would like to, just before I go off a little bit, I'd like to give a props. Tennyson has played exceptionally good for New Jersey. I wanted to watch him specifically last night because he's been like a journeyman, kind of barely making it into the lineup. I have a feeling that he might have found a home here now. He's looked very good.
Yeah, he has. He's had a really solid start to the season. And Ty Smith, I think, is the other one for New Jersey, who just looks phenomenal coming into that lineup on the back end. And Ty Smith, I think, has number one D-man written all over him.
Yep.
And he's going to be the guy that New Jersey needs him to be in the long term, because he's had a fantastic start as well.
He's had 5 points in his first 5 games or something like that. And they said the names that he's right up there in the record books now, and with some of the great names out there. I can't remember who they were now, but some great names. So yeah, he's having an incredible start to the season. I think we both mentioned him in the saying that I thought that he would make the team. I can't say that I predicted he would be doing this good, but he is doing absolutely fantastic. Okay, we'll move out to the other big game. That's always a big game when the Penguins and Rangers play each other. It was a fun to watch game. And what I'm taking from the Rangers so far this year is this team is still learning to win, how to win.
Yeah, it's not been a great start for the Rangers, and for the Penguins, this was a big game for them to win. Pittsburgh's doing better this year already than I thought they were going to. I thought this was going to be the year that Pittsburgh kind of took that nosedive. Not so fast. Mr. Off-the-Wall Hockey, because that has not been the case at all. Pittsburgh's 4-2 now to start the year. Rangers are 1-3-1, and they're a young team. That's the thing with the New York Rangers, is they're a young team, and I don't think they really know how to win yet. And there's still some issues in that lineup defensively that need to be addressed.
Yeah, they don't have the greatest depth in the world, and we knew that going in. I did think that they were going to be okay, but it's also the division that they're in. As far as Pittsburgh, their schedule has been pretty good to them so far. But in the games that they did have won so far, it's been that Pittsburgh mystique where they just get it through. I can't say they've been really outplaying teams so much, but they've been it's like Pittsburgh does. They just find a way to get it done, right? And it's almost like a polar opposite of teams here, where New York Rangers is learning to do what Pittsburgh has already learned to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think because Pittsburgh still has that Pittsburgh mystique about them, and that way where even when they don't play their best, they still pull out wins, that has me second guessing a little bit how down I was on the Penguins heading into this year. One thing I will say, though, is Pittsburgh is like one major injury away from just completely collapsing.
You would think
if they lose one like of their big major core pieces, then I feel like that team's just going to fall apart.
You would think so, but I mean, I almost think they should be already with Cody Ceci playing a lot and with that defense that they have right now. But they're getting by. Again, we'll see. I kind of feel like that it's the same as with Minnesota. You did it against the Rangers, but how is it going to be when you're up against the Capitals? And
well, they've beaten the Capitals twice already this year.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, they played last weekend and they beat the Capitals twice, and then a big test for Pittsburgh is going to be this week. They've got the Bruins on Tuesday and Thursday.
The Bruins,
and that's going to be they're going to be great games as always between the Bruins and Pens, but that's going to be a big test for the Penguins, especially after the Bruins kind of dismantled the Flyers on Saturday. I think Boston's going to have that confidence heading into that game with how well that they've been playing. So watching Pittsburgh play Boston this week is going to be a really good indication of where the Penguins are at and how good they still are.
Yeah, he asked really go Caps go. I didn't think they played Washington. How did I miss that? Weird.
Yeah, Sunday and then Tuesday.
Wow, that's pretty bad that I didn't notice that. I obviously was paying attention to other games. So yeah, it is going to be interesting. We both had them missing the playoffs this year, and I had comments from people saying, you can never count out the Penguins, and that's. Seems to be the case so far.
Yeah.
I've been burnt by them before. We can't forget how much Crosby is an amazing leader. No doubt about that. He is a fantastic leader, and you never can count him out against any team for sure. So we'll go to Edmonton, Winnipeg. I think we'll talk about now. The Edmonton Winnipeg game. Now, it was a great hockey game. It certainly was. Before this game, going into this game, I was saying, because Winnipeg has played, again, almost like Vancouver. They've been in, now they haven't played as tough of teams. They played Ottawa a couple times and stuff, but they played a crap load of hockey here this last little while. The Oilers are going into their barn, I think, a little bit more rested. And I was saying that this was a must. They got to beat up on Winnipeg really good. After some of the games I've watched them play this season, the inconsistency, this is the one where they had to really chew on them and get rid of them. And they didn't really do that, although they did win the game.
Yeah, no, it certainly wasn't a one-sided affair for the Oilers or either of these teams. It was a very close, hard-fought hockey game, and Actually, at the end there, it looks like the Jets might be able to pull it out, but then obviously a huge goal late from Draisaitl, and just a really exciting third period where it was a lot of action back and forth for both of these teams. Let's see, Winnipeg scored a couple in the third, Edmonton scored a couple in the third, and that was a huge, huge third period, and Edmonton was able to get that last second goal from Draisaitl that was just an absolute game saver for them, and a really, really exciting end to the game without a doubt.
Well, yeah, it was a huge win. It was a back and forth, definite. How do I explain it? It was an exciting game, no doubt about it. As an Oilers fan, it was a very frustrating game. They got into the third, and a team with this lineup starts playing a trap system. Like, what are you doing? Why would you do this? Dave Tippett, was his plan? Did he say, okay, let's start playing the trap, or what? I don't know what it was, but stop it. Please stop it. Don't do it. You're not that. Yeah. You're never going to be that. Don't.
I thought Tippett would be smarter than that, but the Oilers are not that kind of team. They're a run and gun, up and down the ice offensive team, and I didn't see the game, but it must have been really weird seeing them try to play a trap.
Well, I've seen it. They did it against Chicago and lost several times. They fall back into this trap against and against especially a tired Winnipeg team. You should be able to outskate and outwork this team. That's why I said it was a very important game for them to really dominate this Winnipeg team that should be tired. But in all honesty, Winnipeg lost the game, but I think they leave this game going almost feeling like they won because it was a very gutsy, hard-nosed effort. And they've got a guy like Dubois who we saw what happened. I mean, wasn't really showing himself well this year. But last year in the playoffs and everything I saw up until that happened this year, he looked like a grinding, hard-nosed guy that played every shift to the nth degree. And you're going to add that into this lineup if he goes back to being that. And this team could do some damage this year.
Yeah, Winnipeg's one of those teams that I think could be sneaky better than expected. And I had them finishing second to last in that division in my preseason predictions, but I'm already thinking that they might be able to finish higher than that. And obviously, Hellebuck's playing well. Persois played last night,
and he played very well too.
And he played well too. And but with Hellebuck in goal and with the top six offense that they have, and now they lost Laine, but they're getting deeper down the middle to where you're going to have this Scheifele, Dubois, Stastny trio down the middle. And then I assume Lowry probably becomes your fourth line center. I mean, that's incredibly good. And I think Winnipeg's a team that if they can hold up defensively, and that's might be a lot to ask with that decor and who they have back there, but if they can hold up defensively, this could be a team that sneaks into a playoff spot and actually ends up being quite a bit better than I originally thought.
Yeah, and I have to eat my words a little bit. And Logan Stanley, I know you're watching out there. Surprised you haven't commented yet, actually. But I mentioned I thought that because I'd watched him in the AHL and I've watched him progress, and I thought maybe he might not make it in the NHL. Well, I have to eat my words because he actually is playing very well in the role that they've given him so far. He's using his body the way you need to use his body. He made some big hits in this game.
Yep.
And, he's got the size that just running into him hurts. He can be body checked and cause pain. So
he's a big boy.
He's huge, 6'2", something or other, and he has looked very well. So I humbly apologize, Mr. Stanley. I know I probably hurt your feelings earlier, but I'm sure you're going to land on your skates all right. But yeah, their defense, they're getting, like they did last year, really. They got a lot out of a defense that shouldn't look like they get a lot out of.
Yep.
Beaulieu has kind of established himself in the NHL after floundering around in Buffalo and Montreal for a while, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And he seems to be established himself pretty well. He's playing in a very physical game. Forbert, we always knew about his physicality, but he's not playing bad in that role either. It's a surprising, and I shouldn't be surprised because they did the same last year. They're playing surprisingly well in the D zone compared for what it looks like on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question just is, does that keep up? Can they sustain that over the course of the entire season? But if they can, then then Winnipeg's actually in pretty good shape, and they're getting a lot out of guys that are probably playing bigger roles than they should be, but they're getting it out of them. So, they're making do with what they have on the back end, and so far so good for the Jets, and it never hurts to have one of the best goaltenders in the league manning your net either, in Connor Hellebuck, who just continues to be lights out in goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Connor doesn't look like he's ever going to be going down or having too many bad nights. Or an incredible goaltender is making a case for being the best goaltender in the NHL. Well, obviously people thought so last year. I certainly did. I had him as getting the Vezina with this defense, but
I did as well.
Sure, but having Brossoit playing this well makes it even more so that this team could definitely do some damage. And a round of applause for Koskinen for playing every single game this year and knocking back a 9-2-1 last night.
Yeah, I mean, Koskinen continues to just have to be the workhorse here for Edmonton. And it's not like he has the world's best defense playing in front of him either. And he just continues to go out, and Koskinen battles. Every single night, Koskinen battles. And whether they come away with the win or the loss, that Koskinen is going to give his full effort and do everything he can to help the team win. And obviously he was rewarded for that last night, and Edmonton was able to come away with the 2 points.
Yeah, they did manage to pull it away. I'm still skeptical about Edmonton as a team right now. There's a lot of compete issues that I see that have to be rectified. As much as we both kind of like the Turris at $1.6 million, my concern was that with him, and he hasn't really made it change my mind on that yet. He still doesn't look like he has the compete level I want to see out of what he was meant to be. I think that's the most difficult thing with Turris is when he was drafted and when he was brought in early on in his career, he was that guy.
Yeah.
And it's just it's not there anymore. He's just a perimeter guy that, a very vanilla looking player out on the ice a lot of the time.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that Turris deal. I thought that had the opportunity to be a steal of a contract if Turris could get back to being, the Ottawa Senators Kyle Turris, but just hasn't happened, and he's off to a slow start. And maybe shifting the lines around a little bit. And I know that we were talking earlier, and Peyton was here talking as well, that, they put Cassian and Neal on his wings, and that seemed to spark things a little bit. So maybe it's just about finding the right line combination for Turris in Edmonton, but he's off to a pretty slow start, and a lot of the same issues that we saw in Nashville seem to be carrying over. So Turris is, he's an important guy. Like, he's got to get game back on track to really help the secondary scoring issues there in Edmonton. For sure.
I like the idea of putting some grit in there. It doesn't seem like he wants that to be part of his game now. So having a Cassian beside him, and who did you say was the other one again?
James Neal.
James Neal. James Neal is not what you call but he can play physical. I mean, he certainly will fight in the corners a little bit and goes to the net a lot. So that's good. He just burns out quick. He can only play 10 minutes a night. Conditioning issues has been a problem with James Neal. He's even admitted himself. So we'll see what happens with that lineup. I'm not totally convinced. Right now, I like Winnipeg better than the Oilers so far this year. We'll see if that continues because it shouldn't be that way. When you've got superstars like they have on their lineup, and they should be playing better, and all they need to do is outwork people, and they should be fine. So we got 2 more games we'll look at, and then we'll head out into the ether until tomorrow. First of all, before I get into those games, are you doing any play-by-plays in the next little while here? Are you doing one tonight?
Nothing tonight, but I'm doing Tuesday. I've got the Capitals and the Islanders. On Wednesday, I'll be doing the Blackhawks and the Predators, and Thursday will be Penguins and Bruins. So
wow,
those are my three for this week.
I'm really looking forward to that Blackhawks Predators game, because that's going to and you just segued right into our next game. Let's talk about the Predators, since we're going to be doing that. I'm interested in that game because the Predators, well, so far have just looked plain poopty.
Yeah, not a good start for the Preds, and they've just they dropped their last game against Dallas. They dropped the game before against Dallas 7-0, which was Dallas's first game, and the Predators have just not been impressive. It looks like a lot of the same issues from last year are carrying over, and it's the Predators had a down season last season, and it looks like they could be in for one again this year. And what about Dallas, though, coming out of the gate late, starting their season later than everybody else because of their COVID issue, and then they blast the Predators in their first game and then pull out a close 1-goal win in the second game yesterday, and Dallas gets off to a 2-0 start, picking up right where they left off being a Stanley Cup finalist last year, all without Tyler Seguin up front.
Yeah, playing with energy for days. That good. Rick Bowness seems to know what he's doing there in Dallas. Ever since he's got in, he's had that energy moving. I've heard glowing things from the players about Rick Bowness. They absolutely love him, and good for him. Rick Bowness has been a guy who's did it his way his whole career, and got fired for it a couple of times. But it seems like he's got some confidence from ownership here in management, and it's going to be interesting to see what Dallas does. I did watch that game last night. Nashville just looks uninspired. That's the word. Yeah. Totally uninspired. We were wondering about the Luke Kunin move, yeah. and there was talk about uninspirational play in Minnesota, and it seems to be carrying over here. And he's not getting much inspiration from the same lineup that didn't have much inspiration last year. Duchesne, Johansson, Forsberg, these guys are just not providing energy for this team like they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and that screams leadership problem to me. At some point, somebody's got to stand up in that locker room and say, "Get it together, boys." Like, Roman Yossi's the captain there, and I don't think Yossi's kind of the stand up and scream rah-rah type. He kind of comes off as more of like a quieter, just lead by example, show my play on the ice kind of guy. But somebody with all of those veterans in that locker room, somebody has got to stand up and say something. And that's an issue where if it's an effort and compete level thing, that's something that is on the players, and that's something that is very difficult to fix without changing who's in the locker room. And I don't know, Nashville's going to be in for a long year if they're not competing on a nightly basis. And I don't know what it's going to take or who's going to do it, but somebody has got to step up there in that locker room and say, get it together, and then go out on the ice and play with some sort of energy and some sort of inspiration in their game. And then maybe you'll start to see things pick up there with the Predators a little bit. But I'm looking at those veteran guys and those guys that are getting paid a lot of money, like Duchesne, like Johansson, like Forsberg, like Yossi. Somebody's got to send a message there and make a statement.
Yeah, then that's why I was kind of suspicious about re-signing Granlund because he wasn't going to provide.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to provide that for sure.
No.
Now they did try to. It's like they sort of tried their best to find some in Richardson and Holla, but Holla's been moving all over the place this year.
All over the place.
I don't know. In Vegas, he seemed to have that reputation, and then that reputation seemed to fall off of him in Carolina, Florida. Is there one I'm missing? Everywhere. Columbus and Ottawa. Didn't he play in Ottawa too? I mean, he's played all over the place, that guy.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember him in Carolina and Florida. I remember him starting in Minnesota. He played for Vegas after the expansion draft, but he's played for a lot of different teams.
Yeah, so that kind of is, for me, I don't know about for you, but that's sort of a red flag, right?
Yeah, anytime a guy gets moved around that much, you kind of look at it and you go, all right, well, there's obviously a reason. So what's going on here? Why is this guy getting moved around so much? And you've seen from his offensive numbers, they've just absolutely nosedived after his first year in Vegas, which he had a monster season. He had a career high 29 goals and 55 points. And then the next season, he was riddled with injuries. He only played 15 games, and he only had 7 points. And then last year, he split between Carolina and Florida, and he only had 12 goals and 24 points. So injuries have been an issue for Howla, and the offense hasn't been there as it was at the beginning of his Vegas stint. So he's a guy that's got to kind of get it going if he's going to salvage what's left of his NHL career.
Yeah. I was going to say something. Oh, yeah, that particular game we're looking at right now, he had zeros across the board.
Yeah.
No hits, no shots, no nothing. So
nothing. Yeah, that's a pretty invisible player.
Yeah, so that wasn't it. That's really what I see with them when I'm watching. They've got to find some guys. I think they tried it maybe with Boriecki too. Boriecki did lay out some big hits last night, but they got to find some guys that are out there with some compete level. This team is not competing, and Hines isn't finding it. You have to have a red flag when... Sorry?
Hines didn't find it in New Jersey either.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be some of the problem there. I'm not a big John Hines guy.
I found it pretty suspicious when they got him too. It's a red flag to me when Laviolette can't get anything out of your team anymore.
Yeah, that when Peter Laviolette can't get a good compete level out of a team, it may not be the coach, it might be the players in that locker room.
I totally agree with you. Well, boys and girls, I think that's our full 42. We'll leave the other games out there. They weren't much really for games anyways. But this has been absolutely awesome, John. I love doing this with you. I don't know if I told anybody here, but I did not listen to your video because I wanted to hear your viewpoint on Dubois and all of that stuff like that. And it was everything I thought it would be. It's going to be, that's going to be a great storyline coming up. We didn't expect a lot of trades and stuff coming into this year with all the COVID thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, not at all.
Which makes that kind of exciting in itself that we got an opportunity to be able to talk about a huge blockbuster like that.
Yeah, not only was it a trade, but it was one of the biggest ones we've seen in the league in recent history. Yeah,
and kind of a hockey trade in a way, because it's not just a cap trade or something like that necessarily. It was an actual hockey trade brought on by two discontent players, which we're seeing, and we've got about 5 minutes here, which we're seeing. And I wanted to kind of lean on you on this for a little bit. What do you think about this now with the players kind of having a little more control of their destinies and futures in the league?
Well, other sports obviously are more, the NBA is very player driven. NBA players pretty much get to do what they want. The NFL, I think, is much more team first, where if you're a problem in the NFL, they'll just cut you right then and there, and they don't even have guaranteed contracts, so they'll just cut you, and that's it. It's definitely something that's a little different for hockey, especially the culture of hockey, where it's very team first and very much like you got to be all in, 100%, all in for the team. You listen to the coach, be respectful of your teammates, and like having like the big attitude and the big egos hasn't really always been looked greatly upon in hockey, like it is in basketball, where if you're the superstar, and you tell the team what to do. But now we're seeing it more and more with hockey. I mean, Jack Eichel, there were jokes going around that Jack Eichel is now the GM of the Buffalo Sabres because they basically just do whatever he wants, so he'll want to stay there. And now we're seeing, Barzal held out right till the start of the season to get that $7 million a year that he wanted. We saw Nylander hold out deep into the season when he was getting his current contract, and we're seeing it more and more where these big time players are they know what they're worth. They know that they're really good players, and they know that what they deserve, and they're not going to be pushed around by a team, and they're not just going to give in and say, yeah, well, for the betterment of the team, I'm just going to take this deal. They're saying, no, this is what I'm worth. I want to be paid this, and if you're not going to pay me that, then send me somewhere else. And it's kind of a new thing for hockey that we haven't seen a whole lot. There have been guys like that, but it hasn't been a regular thing like it is becoming now. And it's just it's a change in the game, and it's a change in the league that we're all going to have to get used to.
Yeah, well, I personally don't. I kind of understand it as a player. These players work their butts off, and they give up a lot of their social life. And yeah, it's a game, but it's still a lot of people tried to get to where they are, and they did, and they got there. So there's a reason why they're there, and I think the NHL is trying to find a balance there too, because for the longest time, the owners basically just told them you did whatever the owner did, and that was it. Yeah. Like they ran your life. You were a puppet for them, and that was it. And the pendulum is swinging the other way. I would not want to see it swing as far as basketball does. I think it looks bad on
I agree.
It looks bad on the league to have what happened with Harden there and all of that stuff. I don't like that at all. But it is kind of good I think it is kind of good for a team to start looking at taking care of players where they really want to be, having a little bit of influence of where their lives are laid out. Or what they do in their lives and stuff like that. Also, it's changed the fabric of how I think drafting and all of that stuff goes now. There's a lot more talk that goes into who they trade for, who they draft, trying to get players that are going to be happy in the situation they're in now compared to where it was before.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. And there's, that goes on through the interview process with draft picks, and I'm sure that when trades are being discussed, I'm sure that that's something that's discussed. Are they going to want to be here? Are they going to want to play here? What are they like just as a person? That's something that's really paid attention to now, and I think there are definitely positives to that for everyone involved. And I certainly wouldn't want it to become like basketball, where the players just completely run the show and get to do whatever they want. But at the same time, I think there are some positives to being a little bit more player-friendly as a league.
Yeah, I agree. No doubt about it. I'm glad.
It's all about striking a balance. It's all about striking a balance, as with anything. And you don't want to be too hard on one side and not enough on the other, but you don't want to be the complete other way either. So it's just about finding that balance of keeping the players happy and making sure that they're not, running roughshod on the league as a whole either.
Yeah, it's coming at things with the right heart. And I think hockey, for the most part, has done that. And that's really why I appreciate the game a lot. They seem to come at things with a good heart towards the players in the game and the people and everything themselves. Here in Canada, they do a lot of they do a lot of shows on our CBC networks that go out to the community, and they remember the grassroots of the game, and that's really what it comes down to. And one thing I find hockey has done really well at is remembering the grassroots of why we're here. It's a game. It's fun. We love it. You and I talk about hockey, and we love the game. But what I do love about you is you love it because it's fun. It's a great game that we can't, and that's the heart of it. I never want to see that go away. So, and that's what I think the league does quite a bit. We didn't get into the Vancouver-Ottawa game, but that's okay because it's the only game we're going to be able to talk about tomorrow. I don't know. I don't think you're going to be with me tomorrow. Maybe, or you are or you're not. I don't know. But we'll find out that afterwards. But we will be here tomorrow, same time. We're running a little late today, but 12 till 2 Eastern. I'll be doing this every day. We'll talk about the game that's happening tonight, and we'll probably get into the future games and many other great topics that you just heard. Thank you for coming in and enjoying this fine programming. It was awesome having you. Thank you, John, for coming again. You're amazing. And remember, www.steelflyers.com, this all sports network. It is a fantastic network that I get to be part of, and so does John. We're really excited about it. Go over to that website, check it out, watch as it grows. You're going to love it. John's going to be on live tomorrow night, right?
Yep, I'll be doing the Capitals and the Islanders game tomorrow night, and I'll be doing some more streams throughout the week as well. And obviously, I'll have my regular show on Friday night as well. And I'll be doing, I might be doing something with the Professor Joe Bork tomorrow. Professor Joe Bork, go check out his stuff, Sports Fanatic News. He's freaking awesome. We call him the Professor for a reason. Come join in, and you can watch his takes because they are off the chain, man. Pretty amazing stuff. And don't forget Peyton on the radio, who is down in the comment sections today. He's got great work. Go over there and subscribe to all of them because we're all together and we're growing as one. Thanks for coming in, everybody. That's our full 42. Have a great day. Lots of love to ya.